With more, we're now joined by the Liberal member for the riding of Outremont in Quebec, Rachel Bendayan. She is also the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Tourism. Raquel Dancho is the Conservative member for the riding of Kildonan-St. Paul in Manitoba. She's also the vice chair of the Common Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security. And Peter Julian is the NDP member of Parliament for the riding of Burnaby New Westminster in BC and is the NDP Party House leader. Hello to the three of you.
Good to be here.
Hi there. Hi, Michael.
Ms. Bendayan, I'm going to get you to start us out here because I want to get your reaction to the criticism that's being expressed by members of the Canadian public, including Carey Price, when it comes to the firearms, the gun bill that's being making its way through the Commons right now.
Sure, and thanks for the question, Michael. Before I get to that, I just want to acknowledge that I'll be heading back to Montreal tomorrow in order to stand with the victims of Polytechnique and their families. It is 33 years now, this December 6th, that 14 women were gunned down by a semi-automatic assault weapon. And, we know that weapon was designed to kill as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time possible. And those are the weapons that we're really trying to go after in C21 and in the amendments to C21. To your question, of course, there's been a lot of noise about this particular piece of legislation in the last couple of weeks and days, including just this weekend. And you mentioned Carey Price, who I have to admit is one of my favorite hockey players. And, of course, I was really saddened to see him pick up a lot of the rhetoric and disinformation coming from the gun lobby. And then it was brought to my attention last night, actually, that this is somebody who literally has a flag of the gun lobby in their home. And so, I think this is somebody who's associated with the CCFR, and I understand, his position. But the reality is that the gun that he was holding in the picture that he posted on social media isn't going to be banned by our proposed legislation. We're really not going after, that gun or guns traditionally used and conceived for hunting. We really respect that tradition that is so rich in our country. What we're going after are guns that were designed to kill people, military-style assault weapons in the amendment, and handguns in our legislation. And we saw that the registration of handguns rose 71% between 2010 and 2020 in this country, and we need to take action.
Ms. Dancho, what's your concern with the amendment? As we heard there from Ms. Bendayan, it's meant to be a legislation that tackles guns and firearms that kill people, not hunting weapons.
Well, I think one of my primary concerns is this is coming in light of a 92% increase in gang murders in Canada since Justin Trudeau became the Prime Minister, a 32% increase in violent crime, which equates to 124,000 more violent crime incidents last year than from the first year that he became Prime Minister. So the Liberal government, unfortunately, their approach to fighting crime has failed terribly, and they are looking to change the channel by moving forward on this very underhanded and sneaky amendment that they brought forward at the end stage of committee that is the largest ban on hunting rifles in Canadian history. There are many ubiquitous hunting rifles and shotguns on that list that are widely used by our Indigenous hunters, by Canadian hunters in rural and northern Canada, and they certainly are seeing many of their firearms on that list now that the list has been put out there, and they're deeply concerned about it, as they should be. And the arguments being put forward by the Liberal government, unfortunately, and I do believe this is by design, could be applied to any firearm. So what we're seeing is them opening the door to banning many, many more firearms. They've said this before, we'll never come for hunters. Well, now that they have, I think that they've lost all trust from the hunting community, and that's going to take a lot of work for them to rebuild, and I don't know if they ever will be able to do so.
Yeah, Mr. Julian, what's your take on this? Because, one might think that the NDP is in favor of gun legislation, but your colleague, Charlie Angus, is calling the amendment, at least, an overreach, expressing his concern for hunters.
Well, we've expressed support for the freeze on handguns. We've expressed support for the ban on military-style assault weapons. What was important was to move the legislation through, and particularly in light of that very sad anniversary tomorrow. I think is a consensus in Canadian society on both of those points. The problem is the government then tabled amendments at the 11th hour that hadn't been vetted. They hadn't been consulting with Indigenous communities in many rural communities. People depend on having a hunting rifle to put food on the table for their families. And instead of vetting it through appropriately, instead of really talking about the amendments, they just tabled them they're confusing. Even the Prime Minister admitted that to that today, that the confusion about what is now legal and what is not legal if the amendment is passed is something that's perplexing to so many people. And so as a result of that, I think what the government has done is unfortunately set back the principles of ensuring that ban on military-style assault weapons and the freeze on handguns is actually put into place. It is difficult for people who are law-abiding gun owners who use guns for hunting to put food on the table to know whether or not their hunting rifle is legal or not. For law enforcement, that confusion as well is compounded. How does law enforcement actually enforce laws that nobody knows the answer to? And the Liberals, unfortunately, have not been able to answer some of the simple, basic questions about the amendments. It's really unfortunate because these are important initiatives. The bill itself is an important initiative, and the government amendments put through without vetting, without the due diligence that was required, have led to a lot of confusion around this bill.
Ms. Bendayan, what do you say to that, to the confusion? Because it's also been said that perhaps this is a missed opportunity because in the confusion, the goodwill of Canadians may actually be expended by the amendments that have been added here.
Well, let's remind ourselves where that confusion comes from. It comes directly from the gun lobby, and it is the disinformation campaign that the gun lobby has organized that the Conservatives have picked up, which is sowing confusion in this country. I am certainly happy to organize technical briefings to ensure that everybody has a good understanding of what we are trying to do here, but this should come as no surprise to anybody. It was in our 2019 platform to ban assault weapons in this country, and we have an order in council which listed a number of assault weapons. Manufacturers have since tried to play whack-a-mole with our list and have created other weapons with different names and makes and models in order to get around that list. And what we needed was a clear definition, which is the amendment that is before the committee.
But can you guarantee to hunters in this country that the guns that are being referenced in this amendment will not affect the guns that they have in their homes?
Well, I think that we need to take a step back and look at the definition, understand what it means, and if hunters have questions, then I am certainly happy to answer them. I think it is important that Canadians have a good appreciation of what is and isn't legal in this country, and part of the goal of the definition is to make that clear rather than continually updating a list. What we have now is a clear definition that Canadians can understand and know in advance, and that is what is important, because I feel that from a criminal law perspective, we need to give that assurances to Canadians that they should know before purchasing a firearm whether or not it's legal. And military-style assault weapons that were designed to kill people, not ducks, are not. They don't belong on our streets. We can see the damage that they cause.
Let me jump in because I'm losing time here. Ms. Dancho, what do you say to that? A clear definition is what we're being told.
Well, I think it's just a bit misleading. The Liberal government, and particularly the Minister of Public Safety and the Prime Minister, have now said for 2.5 weeks, oh, there's no hunting rifles on this amendment. The Conservatives are fear-mongering, has been their words. But just today, they've admitted, oh, well, you know, if there's any hunting rifles, we're going to remove those and we'll fix the amendment. So which one is it? Is it there are no hunting rifles, or is, as they said today, that there are hunting rifles? So we do feel that there's been a lot of lying from the Liberal government looking to distract Canadians from the truth. Certainly there are legitimate, and again, ubiquitous hunting rifles on there that have been used for many, many decades by Indigenous and non-Indigenous hunters safely, and we do feel that this actually, I'm going to pick up on something that my colleague from the NDP, Peter Julian, has said that's really important, because there are so many Canadians that own these types of firearms for hunting and for protecting their livestock on farms. It will criminalize those who own these. If all of these are becoming prohibited, it will criminalize those Canadians who have them if they use them not knowing they're on the list. And as has been outlined today, it is a very unclear definition with hundreds and hundreds of pages of commonly used firearms that are used for hunting and protecting livestock. So if we're seeing an Indigenous hunter who's pulled over by a police officer who has one of these in their back seat that they're going hunting for, they could face up to 10 years in prison. So why would the Liberal government bring forward something that they've called that has been said has been very confusing? They've been working on this for months, clearly. It's hundreds of pages long.
Quickly,
so why would they do that unless they were trying to avoid transparency and accountability? So they have to remove this amendment and take it back to the drawing board, and better yet, never bring it forward again, Michael.
Peter Julian, quickly running out of time, but how do you think the government needs to proceed here?
Well, the government messed up, there's no doubt. I certainly agree that the Conservatives have spread some disinformation as well. That's something, they fundraise off anything that's before the House, and I wish that they were more focused on being the official opposition. But the government did mess up. They've confused everything, and now the NDP will step in, as we've done in the past, as adults in the room, to try to make some clarity. Because the important thing, whether you're a law-abiding hunter that it puts food on the table for your family, or in law enforcement, the law needs to be clear. And I think the original edition of the bill, Bill C-21, was clear enough. What the government's done at the 11th hour is messed it up, and now we have to get back to some clarity and transparency. And we need to be consulting with Indigenous communities and other Canadians to make sure that everyone is clear on where the hunting rifle is found.
Okay, Peter Julian, thank you for that. Also, our thanks to Rachel Bendayan and Raquel Dancho. To the three of you, thank you for the time.